just a hack. He's just an absolute hack. And he gets his ass kicked by his teammates every week. It's just, it's terrible. It's just terrible.
You're tuned into the Believe in NFL Draft Prospects podcast. I'm Joe DeLeone here with Ryan Roberts. We're moving on to safety week. We've got another pairing before we get to our rankings on the next episode. Alex will be joining us after we missed him last week. Today, we've got a pairing of two tall safeties, J.L. Skinner from Boise State, Antonio Johnson from Texas A&M. This is an odd one, Ryan, because they're both big safeties. One is bulkier than the other, but they play vastly different roles and have vastly different usages at the next level, despite being both in that 6'2" and 3/4, 6'3" range.
They are they're really exciting football players, man. I mean, it feels like the position is just getting bigger and bigger, Joe. I mean, you think about Jeremy Chin that came out a few years ago. You think about Kyle Hamilton this past cycle. J.L. Skinner is very similar size to a Kyle Hamilton, and Antonio Johnson may not be quite as thick as J.L. Skinner is 220 pounds, but he's a 6'3", right around 200-pound safety himself. So we got the big boys on tap for today, man.
Big
and
boys.
I know that's it's exciting for you. It's very exciting.
I don't know if I'd call Antonio Johnson a big boy.
Oh, man, he's a big boy. 6'3", 200 pounds.
No, he's listed at 192. He looks 190.
He's listed at 195, and I would be surprised if he's not over 200 pounds at this point.
I don't know. I didn't feel like he was that big. J.L. Skinner's a big freaking dude. I don't think he's 6'4", but he's a big dude.
You don't think he's 6'4"? I think I have the official measurements. So
do you?
Yeah, he was on. He was on Plus, though. I think.
I'll let you pull it up and I'll do the read. But I'm curious. I don't know. I just didn't get the feeling he was 6'4". While you're looking that up, I want to tell you folks about Bet Online. We're almost a week away. We're a few days and a week away from college football, and I'm telling you guys right now, there's not that many games, but I'm going to bet as many of those games as possible. I'm going to be so freaking juiced up that I can bet college football. No more of this baseball nonsense betting strikeouts. I'm sick of it. And I'm going to be going to Bet Online, which has the best platform, best odds, contest events for sports betting. Find reviews and news for every league, including Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, esports, and even golf. But Bet Online continues to be the top online resource for all of your sports information, from live in-game betting, props, and futures. Head to Bet Online today or use your mobile device to join and make your first sports bet. Use our promo code BELIEVE50 to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet Online, where the game starts. All right, let's start with J.L. Skinner. Did you get a verified height on him?
I do. Yes, he is 6'4" and 1/8, 210 pounds. He was 210 pounds in the spring, and he has 33-inch arms. So
he's taller than 6'4".
He's slightly taller than 6'4", 6'4" and a hair. We'll call it 6'4" and 1/8 right now. Yes.
Wow, I'm bad at gauging guys' heights on film.
You're really bad at it. Yeah, awful at it. Really.
I don't know why.
One of the worst I've ever seen. Really.
for someone who claims to like bigger athletes, and I can't even tell how big they are.
Yes. So I mean, but honestly, Joe, we're joking around here, but he is pretty much the same exact size as Kyle Hamilton from a size perspective. I'm pretty sure Kyle also weighed in at 6'4" and 1/8. 33-inch arms. So he is pretty much the same exact size profile as Kyle Hamilton, who went number 14 overall to the Baltimore Ravens this past year.
Obviously, Kyle Hamilton has more range. Like, the one thing that was brought up with him was sideline to sideline. But I think if we timed him in a 40 right now, J.L. Skinner, I don't think it would be that far off from that 4.6 number. I know we were so shocked by that 4.6 number, but I think Skinner has that low 4.6, high 4.5 speed. He's pretty fast for his size.
You know what they had on him for a estimate on, because he didn't run the 40-yard dash. It was just, measuring in during spring day. But you know what the scouts put as a estimated 40 time for J.L. Skinner?
Don't tell me something silly.
Well, what do you think?
Well, considering we were so off on Kyle Hamilton, I don't know, 4.45.
4.45 is exactly the number that they have on J.L. Skinner.
He's not a 4.45 guy.
Nah, I don't think he's a 4.45 guy either. But I will say this. He is quite explosive for his size. So my guy can move a little bit, man. He can move. And again, to your point, let's not make this like a mythical tale for a second, right? Like you shouldn't expect this guy to be a 4'4" athlete at this size. Like he's a massive, massive dude, right? So 4'5" at 6'4", 210 plus pounds is going to look pretty good if we're being honest. So JL Skinner is a very athletic kid, as we can tell just by that height, weight, speed combination.
Now, Ryan, if you know anything about me, which I don't think you do, and as you've learned my scouting tendencies,
yes,
you could probably guess that I really, really like JL Skinner. I'm consistent with my bias, and I watched him. When I watched him with the one game that we did have access to, I was very, very impressed.
Yeah,
you talked about that explosiveness for his size. He's outside of that range of what he needs to be for his explosiveness, being a bigger safety. He moves as well as some smaller guys do that we're probably going to look at in this class. To couple that with his skills as a run defender is exciting to watch. Like I think this is a guy who, you mentioned a Jeremy Chin. This is what teams look for in safeties these days. When we did the linebackers, we talked about how there's these tweener guys, a Trenton Simpson. How does he fit on a defense? The opposite here is a hybrid player like a JL Skinner that is a really good run defender, is as good of a tackler as some linebackers are. I think this is what a lot of teams are excited for safeties, and a guy like him is going to be highly sought after in this upcoming draft.
So if you haven't seen him for Boise State, should I do the backstory real quick,
Yeah,
Joe, as far as the recruiting profile?
Yeah.
So he's from Point Loma High School in San Diego, California. The background is that he was a lightly recruited player, 3-star recruits by both ESPN and 247 Sports. I think a couple didn't even have him ranked at all. So offensively, 1,000 yards all purpose, 11 touchdowns his senior year. Defensively, 40 tackles, 1 interception, 5 forced fumbles, 3-time letterman in both basketball and track and field. So a pretty highly acclaimed athlete coming out, ends up at Boise State. My favorite things about him, Joe, is it's sort of like Kyle Hamilton to a degree, where Kyle Hamilton was the best player on Notre Dame's defense. So like at 6'4", 220, they would put him at single high free safety a ton. Yeah. And honestly, Boise State would also do that with JL Skinner. Like he's playing too high a ton, but he's also playing single high. They're using it all over the place. And I think that's more like a kudos to just the athlete that he is at that size, right? Like that's not an ordinary thing for a size profile like this to be doing. And I think that there's a solid enough range on the back end where like too high safety, cool. But for me, the thing that really attracted me is explosive athlete, and he's a heat-seeking missile, man. Like this, I think Jeremy Chin is actually, excuse me, I think Jeremy Chin is a good comp for him. I really do, because I think that there is a strong safety, second-level defender, mid-hole defender. Like he can do a little bit of everything, but I definitely want him coming towards the line of scrimmage, right? Like I don't want him like sitting back and being that single high, deep safety. I want him to get involved in the run game, because he's a striker. He's got great length. He can close passing windows, work in short zones. I think he can do a lot of things. And then also, I think he's more than adequate enough as a change of direction player to be a tight end eraser. Like I could see him as a de facto strong safety, Sam linebacker coming up and playing man-on-man against tight ends. Like I could see that. Big slots. I think he can do all that type of stuff. But I was over the moon on JL Skinner, to be honest, when I was watching him. I did not expect to be as high as I was on JL Skinner, but this kid is a really athletic kid. Not quite Kyle Hamilton, but he's Kyle Hamilton light. Like he's got some of that in him, in my opinion.
It's interesting that you brought up how they had him playing over the top a lot. And I don't think that's like you just talked about here. He should not be doing that in the NFL. I think that's just a circumstance of being the best athlete in the secondary that you're going to ask him to do that. But bring him down more towards the line of scrimmage, play that Jeremy Chin role, and this is a really freaking good player. And like I was saying a second ago, this is what teams are looking for. They want a nickel safety that they don't have to take off the field, that they can leave on the field as often as possible. Maybe his role where you play him varies based on the look, but he's got the size, he's got the frame to play in the box. He comes down hard against the run, which is awesome. I didn't really find a lot of deficiencies. We're obviously not going to ask him to cover a slot receiver one-on-one. I think that would be silly. I think that he is athletic enough to and tall enough to stay with tight ends like you talked about. He might run into some issues trying to cover running backs, but the guy can move. He comes down hard. He's got a really good motor. There was one play against Oklahoma State where a receiver caught a screen, starts running to the right side of the field, doesn't see what he likes, cuts back to an open field. This is on the right hash, cuts back, and on a normal instance, if this receiver was maybe a little faster and there wasn't a JL Skinner on the field, could have scored by cutting back to nobody on the left side of the field. I watched JL Skinner come down from one side of the field to track him and then completely follow him and make that tackle. Like that to me is exactly what I want in a run defending safety. The guy has everything you want. Like I don't see a reason to not be in on a JL Skinner.
You know who he kind of reminded me of, and this is a big comp, is I did get some Cam Chancellor vibes at times. Like I think he is a enforcer, man. Like again, Cam Chancellor was so good because he was able to freelance a little bit because he had Earl Thomas next to him, right? So like Earl Thomas was kind of the eraser on the back end from a pass coverage perspective, which let Cam Chancellor play strong safety, play mid-hole, be an enforcer in the run game. I think he has that type of upside on the next level. Like Jeremy Chin, Cam Chancellor, he's that type of dude. But the reason I'm so high on him is because like you can find this type of player throughout the draft, usually this kind of bigger safety that can also do some stuff on the second level. But I think JL Skinner is a pretty special athlete at his size. Not quite Kyle Hamilton again, but like explosive, can change directions. There's not a hindrance from an athleticism perspective. So call him a big nickel, call him a strong safety, call him a linebacker. I don't care. All I know is defensively, this is that nameless football player, right? Like the positionless football player. I can use JL Skinner all over the second and third level and be a very successful football player, in my opinion.
And I'm going to say pretty definitively, I think this he's a first round pick. I'm willing to pair him with Jordan Battle as like a 1A, 1B because they're different players. I can't pick one over the other necessarily. But right now I'm at a 1A, 1B with these two guys because I think that all the boxes are checked for what teams are looking for in a safety.
And the NFL likes him. He got a nice grade on NFS. We haven't seen the Bluster report on JL Skinner, but the NFL likes him. He contemplated coming out in the draft last year because he was a junior last year, so he could have technically entered the 2022 class. But, I mean, yeah, Joe, I'm there. Like, if you told me he ends up being a first-round pick, I'd be like, yup, I get it. I get it, you know. But I think he's a first to second-round type of football player right now. He needs to fall into with a defensive coordinator that is creative because I don't want them to pigeonhole him and just ask him to do things that he's not incredibly comfortable at. But he has all the goods to being a really good player on the next level. There's no doubt. Like I hope that a team utilizes him again, similarly to how Jeremy Chin's utilized for Carolina. Like I think that would be perfect role for him.
Yeah, we're big fans of JL Skinner here on the pod. The other guy that we have, Antonio Johnson from Texas A&M, a lot leaner, very different usage. What do you got on him for a background?
So he was a much higher recruit. He's a St. Louis kid originally. So he's out of East St. Louis High School, obviously in St. Louis, Illinois, actually in East St. Louis, Illinois, not Missouri. So Joe, this kid was Army All-American, consensus 4-star recruit across the board, everywhere. And he was last year in high school, he totaled 98 tackles, 2 interceptions, was also listed as an athlete coming out. So he actually had 39 receptions for 830 yards and 7 touchdowns. So there were some teams recruiting him as a wide receiver, some recruiting him as a defensive back. I think some were recruiting him as a corner. Like he was getting recruited all over the place. Ends up at Texas A&M. Obviously, they like him at safety. And this past year was his real big breakout season. He played a little bit as a freshman. I think he had 1 start. But this past year, 79 total tackles, 8.5 tackles for loss, interception, 6 pass breakups, a forced fumble, a sack. he was all over the place for Texas A&M, playing more of a nickel role. So he was kind of their overhang defender in their defense. So if like you go on Pro Football Focus, for instance, he's very highly rated by their service, but they rank him as a corner because he played most of his spots as a nickel corner defensively.
Mm.
I might look that up real quick as we're talking and just seeing what the breakdown was as far as number of plays that were in the slots, number of plays that were in deep safety, second level, all that good stuff. So if you bear with me for 1 second, because
Antonio Johnson, though, it's kind of funny considering him I would classify him as a defensive back. I wouldn't even put the safety moniker on him, because you watched how he played at Texas A&M, and he played a ton in the slot. And if he wasn't in the slot, he was playing somewhere near the box. Like there were not a lot of reps where it felt like where he was playing over the top. And they had not a crowded safety room, but a talented safety room where they needed him to play a different role. He was on the field a ton, but the way that he's used, that ability to be a nickel corner, if you will, or a nickel DB to cover guys in the slot, a big nickel that's got coverage skills, like that's a very valuable skill. Like that's something that the opposite of JL Skinner, what he does, this is the opposite direction of coverage based rather than run based. Like that's another thing that NFL teams are looking for.
All right, you ready for this breakdown, Joe?
Yeah.
Of his alignment. So he had the most snaps he had was in the slot, 603 total snaps as an overhang slot defender.
Wow.
He had next closest was 130 snaps in the box, so as a second level defender. Then the next after that was 43 snaps on the defensive line. So he's playing on the line of scrimmage. And then you have 19 reps as an outside corner and 4 reps as a free safety. So to your point, he's only played on the roof about 4 times last year, which is pretty crazy to think about. So this is a big nickel. This is a slot defender. That's what you've seen. So where does that worry you? Worries me, because if I'm projecting him as a safety, I haven't really seen him work from depth at all.
Yeah.
Right? Like everything is tight, short spaces. Everything is man-to-man coverage. Everything is as a slot defender. That being said, my guy's got the goods, Joe. He's got the goods, man. 6'3", 195. He's got length. He is stupid explosive, man. Like he changes direction. I was shocked to see a 6'3" guy change direction like this. This guy is a legitimate dude where I say he's going to play safety for me, and I'm going to ask him to do a lot of different things, but he can play nickel at the next level. Like not a full-time like corner playing nickel, but like he can play that big nickel role and play it very well. And the biggest thing for me was I thought his eyes were good, but that changed of direction, man. When he saw things coming and he's able to explode on the wide receiver in front of him when he's seeing things develop, that closing speed is outrageous for a guy like Antonio Johnson.
Yeah, that was what popped to me, is that ability to close down, immediately shutting things down when he saw where those guys coming out of the slot were going on those routes. I feel like all of my analysis on him, all my thoughts on him just come from those coverage plays. I don't really know how I feel about him as a run defender, because there's not enough context. I don't know how I feel about him as, a deep drop, or even really any zone drops for the most part, outside of near the line of scrimmage, because there's not enough context for that. That's where the evaluation gets tricky on an Antonio Johnson, where I love the coverage skills, but I'm not willing to really buy into him outside of mid-second round. Like I really like him. I'm not saying that he's not good, but like I just think, like, to be realistic, mid-second round, because what do we classify him as? Do we classify him as a safety? I think NFL teams get confused by stuff like this.
Well, NFL teams are stupid sometimes, but
but if it's not, you're not wrong, but they always overthink guys like this.
They do. I'm not saying that they don't, but I don't know, man. Like I saw a special athlete here, like JL Skinner. I can get down with, because like I feel like I'm a creative mind defensively, and I would have a lot of fun with using a JL Skinner. I think that Antonio Johnson is going to be a victim of the fact that he hasn't been asked to do some things, so they're question marks for sure, no doubt about that.
Yes,
but I do think that when you're looking at a player, there is creativity that comes from the fact of like, does he have the traits to do it? And I think that he has a trait to do everything that you want
So
defensively.
where would you take him? Early second?
Oh no, dude, he's a first rounder, 100%.
Really?
Yeah. These types of athletes are special. Like he's a special athlete in my opinion. I think he's going to run 4.4s at 6'3", 200 plus pounds. I think he's going to test phenomenally. I think short area stuff is going to be dumb. Like I guarantee he broad jumps well, vertical jumps. Yes, this kid he's got the goods, man. Like I've seen him cover slot receivers. I've seen him cover bigger tight ends, do all that type of stuff. He's a very, very willing run defender. You can blitz him off the edge. Like you can do everything with this kid, man. I'm all in. I'm all in on Antonio Johnson. Good football player. Really good player.
Maybe I'm overthinking him a little bit. I definitely have him over Brandon Joseph.
You're not overthinking him because you again.
I just don't know. My problem is that I agree. The traits are there. The guy can move. The guy can move really freaking well. Yep. But I have no idea what his instincts are like playing over the top. Like, is he a strong? Yeah. But is he a strong safety though? Like, or is he a free safety? Like, I just don't know where he places. I think there's just a lot of obscurity. And if he's being drafted, some teams might purely rate him as a nickel, like just straight up as like a nickel safety, nickel corner based on what he did at Texas A&M, which he does phenomenally. He should be considered to be the best nickel defensive back. I'm going to keep using that word defensive back, nickel defensive back in the class because of how freaking good he is in coverage. Right. But that's a sub package guy. That's not like a full-time guy. I don't want to make it seem like I'm not creative enough to fully project him, but it's just hard to fully wrap my head around him when he's only doing a very pigeonholed thing at Texas A&M when he could be doing more.
I get it, man. I get it. This is the tough part of evaluation sometimes is that you have not seen the full scope of him, I think, on film. Like you haven't seen it. I think that he can do a lot more than what Texas A&M asked him to do. The problem is that Texas A&M has a really good secondary. Like they have a lot of dudes in that back end, man. I mean, I was talking about Jalen Jones in the quarterback show. It's like he's got two other corners that might push him for a starting job. Like it's an embarrassment of riches. But I think if you just, I mean, this is the summer scouting part of it, right? Mm-hmm. I think that he can do a whole lot more than what he's given the freedom to do in this system. But to your point, you can't really evaluate something that you can't see, right? So like he hasn't done these things, but there's also the other layer of, but I think he can do more. So like that is the battle. That's the quarrel back and forth of like what he can do versus what he's asked to do. Like that's what's up. It's like evaluating a running back and they play in a system where like they aren't asked to catch the football much, but then you see a couple reps where you're like, okay, but like he can do it. It's just, it's not a part of their offense. Right. And that's where this scouting thing gets tough. That's really where it gets tough.
I would hope that the new defensive coordinator at Texas A&M uses him a little bit differently and maybe we have a little bit more context, but two fun, very, very fun safeties in this class on this show. And we're going to get to our full rankings tomorrow, likely. Be sure you're subscribed so you don't miss out at Joe DeLeone, at Rise and Draft, at NFL Prospects Pod. We'll be back with more. Enjoy the rest of your day.